We are coming to our next chapter, which talks about Ubuntu ESCO philosophy. In this, our objectives are to define and explain the meaning of Ubuntu ESCO perspective. Secondly, appreciate the relevance of Ubuntu theory of ethics to contemporary life. Then articulate the contribution of contemporary African thought to ESCO thinking today. Lastly, we apply Ubuntu to different moral and ethical challenges. Definitions of Ubuntu. 1. It is an African philosophy of humanity and community. Secondly, it is an African cultural worldview, how we look at the world in relation to humanity. Thirdly, it is a philosophy of becoming human. When you become human, you observe what we call Ubuntu philosophy, that is, behaving and living like human. Ubuntu also refers to human kindness. It has come to be used as a term for a kind of humanist philosophy, ethic or ideology, also known as Ubuntuism. Ubuntuism has got a rationale. The belief is that man is born formless, like a lump of clay. It is up to the community as a whole to use the fire of experience and the wheel of social control to mold him into a pot that may be of general use. Any imperfections should be borne by the community, and the community should always seek to redeem man. In other words, if we use the metaphor of clay, clay is formless. It is upon human beings to make something of form from the clay. So when we are born in a community, like a child has no form apart from the physical form, but any other part, like language, like behavior, like psychological feelings and whatever, are modeled by the community. The community hands are the ones that make who you are. They have the controls of the wheels of social molding into a required vessel that can be of general use in the community. For any imperfection is like anything that you find on a pot modeled by a potter. If it is inclined to right or left, or has got an even neck or seat, then you blame it on the potter. So the person's behavior is modeled by the community. Anything good or wrong is attributed to the community, and if the person lives contrary to what the community expects, the community should work out to redeem that man from the wrongs. Humanity is a quality we owe to each other. We create each other and need to sustain this otherness creation. And if we belong to each other, we participate in our creations together. We are because you are. And since you are, definitely I am. The I am is not a rigid subject, but a dynamic self-constitution dependent on this otherness, creature, or creation of relation and distance, where we say we coexist and interdepend on one another. So, like we said earlier in the other chapter, that no man lives like an island. You live as a member of the community. The community is because you are, and you are because the community is. Therefore, there is no way how we can avoid that kind of humanism or humanity as a quality of life. Here we have three maxims of Wundtism that shape this philosophy, this kind of reasoning. One is that to be human is to affirm one's humanity by recognizing that humanity of others, and on that basis establish respectful human resolutions with them. In other words, you live in a community and you are affirmed as a human being because there are other human beings who relate with you and you also relate with them. And if you run short of that, then you lose that maxim of saying that you are human or you observe humanism. The second maxim is, if and when one is faced with a decisive choice between wealth and the preservation of the life of another human being, then one should opt to the preservation of life. You have heard about people who attack others and kill them in order to take their belongings or to get wealth. In this perspective, you find that some people who think about accumulating wealth or becoming rich on the expense of other people's life, they lack this issue of preserving life, and therefore they don't deserve to be looked at as human beings, because every human being must put in perspective the value of life against the value of wealth. The third maxim is, the king owed his status, including all the powers associated with it, to the will of the people under him. In other words, the king is a king because there are people under him. If these people reject his kingship, then the king is not there. In other words, he owes this status and all the powers associated with it to the will of the people. If you bring it in the perspective of present elective governments, or the saying, another maxim of the government of the people, for the people, by the people, means when we have a leader, we are the people who put the leader in position. He leads on our behalf. Although some of the people have lost that understanding, once they are there, they forget the people who gave them the powers. But here is that the king owes his status and the power associated with it according to the will of the people. Without the people, the king is not there. Without the king, the people can be there. You see, that is the scenario. We have what we call principles of Ubuntu as a lifestyle. To live human or humanly is a lifestyle. And this observes ethical order. One, caring for the other. If we are living in a community, me and you, a community of people, in order to make a community or a society or a family, we have to cultivate the heart, the habit of caring for one another, because we coexist and interdepend. And I think that is something we talked about in chapter 1. I depend on you and you depend on me, because you cannot be 100% compact that you need no help from any other person. Then also we have to observe what we call common justice, where common justice may define what you deserve as a human being. Common justice. When it comes to lawyers, we say that there is what we call common justice, where somebody deserves a hearing. You don't hear from somebody and say, yes, you are judged right or wrong. A common justice is that you should hear from each one so that it serves all of you and you justify the punishment that you can give. Then when it comes to the medics, it also common justice for people to get fair treatment. A person deserves treatment as a human, especially when we come, whether it is private or public health center. A person who comes sick, you don't isolate him from others. That person must have justice of treatment, fair treatment, not treatment of letting or whatever, but treatment in terms of giving medicine or assessing the person's health problems. So you don't just push away somebody because you don't know him or her or because of this and the other. They have what we call common justice that should be expedited to them. Then interdependence, which I've already talked about. This is shared dignity. I depend on you, you depend on me. Therefore, I should accord you dignity as you accord it to me. Status sometimes tends to overlook human dignity. But you see, if you become rich, you have money, then the poor has no money but needs work. So the rich will depend on the poor, while the poor depends on the rich. And therefore, you have to observe dignity of this person, respect. The fourth one is common humanity, global family. We have come out of very difficult situation where some people or some races think that they are superior than others. But we need to know that creation has defined us equal. We all have been created by the same creator, given the same abilities. Although some people, by luck or by fate, what we sometimes call predestination, you find some people are poor, others are rich, others are middle class. But we have that what we call common humanity, what globally we share, or what globally we must have to determine who we are. Then we have what we call communal responsiveness, how we should respond as a community. Today we are talking about global warming, and it has caused a disaster. Somebody or somewhere, some people are irresponsible of our environment, and as a result, when they degrade it, it ends up disrupting life. And this does not necessarily mean that the people who have negatively affected the environment are the people who are going to suffer. They will cause suffering everywhere. So as humanity, every individual has got what we call communal responsiveness. You respond as a member of the community. If you find somebody messing up, or there is something trying to mess up the environment or the human life, then you respond to it, because indirectly it is going to affect you. So we have what we call communal responsiveness or communal responsibility. Sanctity of spirit of man. Humanness. What we call humanness is that element that separates you from animals and others, but you live human, you talk human, you everything shows that you have characteristics of a human being. And this brings what we call harmony in human relationships. Harmonize our relationships without causing pain, regrets to one section of the people or the other. So we live in harmony. In this case, there are some people whom you find For them, they want to live a better life, while others are living a bad life. And there will be no harmony. We know that in the world where we are, the ground is not leveled. We cannot be horizontally equal. But even when you are up and the other one is low, there must be harmony between the upper and the lower, so that you don't just say, since you are below me, I can pour water on you, I can pour rubbish on you because you are below. Respect people according to where they are placed. That is harmony. Totality or wholeness. This deals with sustainable community. When a community is sustained, there is totality or wholeness. Sustained in the way how we live, what we need to live by. Do we have a sustainable community in terms of income? Is our economy sustainable? Social, our relationship, is it sustainable? Spirituality and all others that we need to determine our human life, are they sustainable? Because if they are not sustainable, somewhere, somehow there is a fault. That you find somewhere some people in a community are living a life that is not sustainable. I will give you an example. Sometimes I wonder. I hear words like Commonwealth, like United Nations. Now I wonder sometimes, if we are talking about Commonwealth, it is a wealth that is shared among the members. But you will find that if you put down a structure of a ladder that shows how these membership nations are in the Commonwealth, you find that there are those which are at the upper, recognizing the highest income. Their people live a higher life. When down, there are people who are still living in dire need of help. Therefore, they are living an unsustainable life. They are depending on the others. The same applies to United Nations. How are you united if you are not having similar elements that unite you? Because if you are united, you should be having common strength. Then this brings about also environmental responsibility. We talked about it in passing, but environment is very, very important. It is vital for our living. If we are not taking responsibility of the environment, then we are likely to affect ourselves directly or indirectly, but also affect others. If we are living upstream and others are living downstream, the moment you interfere with the water upstream, you are going to affect people downstream. So you have a responsibility over the environment so that it can serve equal purpose for you and for those below you or around you. We have a common environmental responsibility to make sure that the environment responds to us positively in terms of rain, in terms of sunshine, in terms of agriculture and other things. You will find in this case, this wholeness is not realized because there are people who are irresponsible. They think about themselves, they don't think about others. And that makes us to lose what we call Ubuntuism or humanity. Ubuntuism or humanity is a recognition that others are as you. They live like you, their needs are like yours. The implication and application of this philosophy. Children are never orphans, since the roles of mother and father, by definition, not vested in a single individual with respect to a single child. In other words, in the Ubuntu philosophy, a child is not a child of a family or one parent. A child is a child of the community. Every person has a hand on that child. And that's why we say that the motherhood and fatherhood is vested in the community, not in an individual. Your neighbor's child is your own. His or her success is your success too. That's when we study and get jobs or employment, when we become, blessed with riches, we are supposed to bless our communities where we come from, because that is the way how we have been brought out. A child leaving his home or her home in the morning interacts with so many members of the community, and these members are responsible to tell the child the essential virtues or principles of living as a community member. Therefore, that's why a child cannot be a belonging to one parent, or that is a father or a mother, but is a child of the neighborhood.